What is Flood Zone X in 2024, and how can it have a big impact on your wallet? That's what we're talking about today, so let's get started. Hello, my name is Chris Green, flood insurance guru. More than 12 years ago, I bought a house in a flood zone just like this right here. It should have been a Flood Zone X, but it wasn't. So my premiums went from $300 to $3,000. I've been helping property owners just like yourself solve this same problem for the last 12 years. Today, we're talking about what is Flood Zone X and how big of an impact is it going to have on your wallet in 2024 and past. So what is Flood Zone X? You might hear minimum risk, low risk flood zone. It scares me every time I hear that. You see, one reason is even though it's called low risk and minimum risk, that's where 30% of claims come out of every year. All Flood Zone X is being used really from a regulatory standpoint when it comes to flood maps. It's really used from whether flood insurance is going to be required, whether you have a mortgage or additional interest. So let's answer that question real quick for you. Is flood insurance going to be required in Flood Zone X? Generally, if you have a mortgage, flood insurance is not going to be required in Flood Zone X because it doesn't fall within what's called the special flood hazard area. Now, these are zones like A and V where flood insurance is going to be required. So is flood insurance in Flood Zone X expensive? Well, the bad news is it's much more expensive than it used to be. The reason is with Risk Rating 2.0, preferred rates with Flood Zone X went away. This means that flood zones are no longer used to determine rates. It means if your property was recently mapped from a high risk to this low risk flood zone, you're not getting that special mapping rate from the National Flood Insurance Program like you did for many years. Traditionally, this may be a $500 or $600 rate. Just recently, we saw a property owner that was being moved into a required area didn't have that newly mapped rate anymore. Instead, they had a $5,500 rate to start off. So remember, when it comes to the National Flood Insurance Program, they no longer use flood zones to determine the rate. They're looking at things like distance to water, type of flooding frequency, elevation of the property, replacement cost of a property. Now let's talk about flood insurance options in Flood Zone X. What are the options? Well, you've got the National Flood Insurance Program. Remember, this is the government program, also called federal flood. Then you've got private flood insurance. Now, if you're out there shopping for flood insurance in Flood Zone X, don't waste your time too much with the National Flood Insurance Program because once you've gotten one quote, it should all be the same. And however, with private, you may have a $300 rate and you may have a $3,000 rate. So we usually recommend you getting 3 different options when it comes to private flood insurance. So what coverages are available for Flood Zone X in 2024? Well, remember, on residential, you've got building coverage up to $250,000 and contents coverage up to $100,000 with the National Flood Insurance Program. Private flood insurance, you don't have the limitations generally of building coverage up to $250,000 and $100,000 on contents. That's big. It means you can properly protect your property with replacement costs if you live in Flood Zone X. Now, we've talked about bank requirements. We've talked about coverages you can get, the flood insurance options in Flood Zone X. Is it expensive? So below in this video, make sure to download our guide to Flood Zone X. This is going to help you really minimize the cost, make sure your property is correctly protected as well. Remember, this is where about 30% of claims come from. You can also check out our other videos on the National Flood Insurance Program versus private flood insurance. Also, make sure to check out our playlist that we have here on the YouTube channel on flood zones for you. My name is Chris Green, flood insurance guru, and I hope that you click below and subscribe to this channel and share it and like it. Comment below. Let us know what other videos you may want to know about when it comes to different flood zones like Flood Zone X. I look forward to teaching you something else about flood insurance and flood zones in our next video. So make sure to click that button so you can be notified. Thank you.